Hey everyone, Bonnie here, and we're back to folding laundry. So I'm going to be out over here folding laundry, but I do want to share my final thoughts for the Witch's Black Lent of 2024. Most of you know I've been working with Pride, and my final thoughts on that is I want to do this again. No, joking aside, working with Pride was very hard for me, like intense. When I worked with Sloth last year, it wasn't too bad. I did have my moments, but I have cried so much these past several weeks because I had to dive deep inside myself to feel Pride. Like I've brainwashed myself to the point where I don't think I deserve Pride, like I've mentioned before. I'm not deserving. And it really did a number for me when I was searching for that self-love, that pride that it's weird to me because when my friends tell me I'm proud of you, when my mom tells me I'm proud of you, when family tells me I'm proud of you, I just thank them and move on. I never actually accept, like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. But I never really acknowledge that I should be proud of myself for those things too. When I was 8, I was sexually assaulted by a 13-year-old boy. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even think about it. But I didn't tell anyone because I didn't understand what was happening. I lived in a very Christian household, and we didn't talk about stuff like that. That was adult talk. And I didn't know about my changing body until they did something at the elementary school on the 9th for 4th graders, for 4th and 5th graders. That's when we learned about our bodies. And I already had an idea, because by that time I was being sexually abused by my now deceased stepfather. He was a terrible man. He abused me, he abused my brother, he manipulated my mom. He was not a good man. My mom once mentioned that he was into black magic. He was into a lot of baneful magic that he had learned from his mother. And every once in a while she'll ask me, "You're not into that, are you?" I'm like, "No, not at his extent." But yeah, I survived. For the longest time, I blamed myself that he killed himself, because he wasn't all bad. He did have his good moments, but as I got older, I realized that was just a mask. Like, a lot of people couldn't believe that he had done this to his family, but they kind of understood where they were coming from, because he had put up this facade that he was a good man. He was a deacon at the church. He did men's ministry, all that. My mom did women's ministries. I was in the choir and the youth group. Church was a big deal and a big factor in our daily lives. So when people are like, "Oh, well, God has a plan for you," I'm like, not the God you worship, because that God did not help me at all. And this was between the ages of 8 and 13, where I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this. And I blamed myself a lot, especially when he killed himself. But my mom always tells me, "I'm proud of you that you spoke up," because it could have been longer. It could have been worse. And I spoke up. I said something. Mostly because my friends got worried about me. I had an eating disorder. I hated my body, and I wasn't getting a lot of sleep because he would sneak into my room at night to assault me. And so I bought a lock and locked the door my mom wasn't too happy. In Hispanic houses, you don't really have much privacy. So my mom wasn't all too happy that I locked the door. But I told her I was having nightmares and I didn't want to wake anybody up. And she just left it at that. Thank God, because there were times where I would hear the lock, would hear the door, and was thankful that I had put that lock there so he couldn't go in. He didn't say anything about it to me, but I knew he was fuming. And then after all that, I got married. I went through high school, met Justin, got married. Justin was a raging alcoholic and has his own mental health issues. So when we were first married, we were not a good fit. I was very lonely, and I took it out on him because he was always with his friends, he was always drinking, and I was very upset because I didn't know how to drive, I didn't have a job, I was lazy, I didn't like to do cooking or cleaning at work or at home. I was a mess, and he was too, and he attacked me on one drunken, blacked out night, and we had usually fought at night when he would drink too much, and he did get physical, but this time he actually tried to kill me. And that, like, I believed I deserved the abuse, but I was pregnant with Lily at the time, and he was strangling me to death. And something in my mouth, in my head, said, "Not the baby." And adrenaline rush hit, and I punched him square in the jaw and broke one of his teeth. And then from there I went to a Planned Parenthood and called a taxi, called the cops, called my mom, called everybody, and got the fuck out of there. Justin thankfully realized his problem, and while he still drinks, it's not excessive. He now knows his limit because he can get very scary if he drinks too much. And the kids were starting to see this, and I was trying to convince him, and he finally fucking listened. But yeah, I had to go through that. And just, like, people hating on me for no damn reason. Like, they don't even know me. When I got diagnosed with schizophrenia, I had one person tell Justin that, because it wasn't a gradual, like, diagnosis. The doctors knew something was wrong, but I wouldn't divulge because I was afraid they were going to take the kids away. And before I was pregnant with Dorian, they actually had suggested I go to an inpatient program, but I didn't want to leave the kids alone. I didn't really know anybody. And Justin couldn't take off work, and I was the only adult in the house. So I told him no, not now. And it progressively got worse. So when I was living in public housing, a friend of ours lived with us, and she helped out with the kids and stuff. And I disappeared for like an hour. And when I came home, I still don't know where I went. I still don't know what I did. It's empty. I can't figure out what was going on. Keisha, my friend who was living with us, she was my sister wife, because Justin and I had an open marriage. So before you say anything, no, it wasn't against wishes. She was a wonderful person. I came home covered in scratches and cuts, and she realized that something was off and told me that we were going to go somewhere. And that's when I was first hospitalized, and that's where I learned that I had schizophrenia. I was hearing voices telling me to smother my children in their sleep. And since I was having those kind of intrusive thoughts and stuff, CPS was called, and they told me I had to get out of the house. I was not allowed to be with the children. And somebody had told Justin that they trusted a gun in the house more than they trusted me with the kids. That hurt. That actually really, really hurt, because I have never, to this day, hurt any of my kids. And when those voices were at their loudest, I left. So I knew I had the strength. But we had to follow protocol, and that was the main reason that Justin and I divorced in 2013. Because I wasn't stable, and I could indeed hurt those kids. Because it was a time where I didn't know what was real, what was not, where I hadn't accepted my diagnosis. I was in a very dark place. When I was 19, I tried to kill myself with my pills, but I did it wrong. Thank God for that, because I wouldn't have Lily. I did it wrong, and I ended up spending an hour vomiting everything on the toilet. So one of my hospitalizations, I tried to strangle myself with the sheets. A tech saw what I was doing, which was tying the sheets to one of the bedposts and dragging myself until I cut off circulation, not necessarily air supply, but you know how the blood right here, there's vessels, and if you push on those, you black out. That's what I was trying to do. And a tech saw me while he was doing the rounds. I was trying to be as quiet as possible and as sneaky as possible, but I am neither of those things. And I got into a fist fight with the tech. And it was just, I did ECT for about 10 years, and I didn't know about electroshock therapy until, that I was still a thing anyway, until I read Carrie Fisher's Shockable and how she adored it. And I can honestly say that that was like a pivotal moment, because I was able to function. Justin called it my reboot, because, and it's not like you see it in the movies where they have to, it's not like that anymore. They put you under, they put electrodes on your head, and then you go to sleep and you wake up sore. They give you a muscle relaxant and anesthesia, and you wake up sore, but it doesn't take much long. What takes the longest is recovery, where you're waking up and you feel like you got hit by a bus. Like you really do. But your mind seems clearer, more refreshed. And I did that as soon as I found out about it in 2013. And I didn't stop until 2020. It started off as like 3 times a week. And then it went down to about once a month. Sometimes I actually went months without it, but it was a big helper with both my depression, or my bipolar, and my schizophrenia. It really helped alleviate a lot of the symptoms. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of my memories. There are just chunks that are not there. And I don't really see it as a big deal, because what I'm creating now is more important than what I remember from the past. Sometimes I wish it had taken other memories, like the memories of abuse, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But yeah, I went through adversity. I've been through racism. I had a racist teacher in first grade who would mock me because I couldn't pronounce certain words or read in a certain way. And I was a smart kid. I knew how to read, but I knew how to read in Spanish. And she was very upset that English was my second language. My mom dealt with her. But yeah, I've been through racism, even unintentional racism. Like, my brother constantly calls me the white girl. And when I was younger, that hurt my feelings because I'm very proud to be Hispanic. Our culture is very diverse and full of life, and I was just the white girl in the family. And it was mostly because my English, compared to theirs, is very American. I have an extensive vocabulary, and most people don't notice that English is my second language. And I didn't have the same upbringings as my brother and my sister had. So for the longest time, not the longest time, they still do it. I'm the white girl in the family. And the longest time was that I was hurt because I felt like they were stripping my culture from me. Now I don't care. That's how they see it. And at times even I see it. I am the white girl of the family, not just with my voice, but also with what I do. I'm not very Christian. I can't cook. Well, I can, but not very well. And I don't hold up the same traditions as my family did. And being pagan, it's even more weird because I don't celebrate Christmas. Justin's birthday usually hits Thanksgiving, so we just have a birthday party. We don't really have a Thanksgiving. And I'm the white girl, so I just had to accept that, whether it was intentional or not. But as you see, I've dealt with racism, even in my own house. I've dealt with misogyny from other women because I did not want to be a housewife. I did not want to live that lifestyle. I tried it, didn't like it. Don't get me wrong, I love staying at home doing absolutely nothing, but having kids kind of ruins that. But yeah, I don't shave. I rarely wear makeup. I stopped straightening my hair a few years ago and never looked back. I don't dress very feminine. I'm an anomaly with most people. Oh, that's dirty. But yeah, I faced abuse. I faced domestic violence, mental health, assault. I've gone through a shit ton of shit that I should not have gone through, especially with how little I was. Because this started when I was 8, and I didn't understand the world at all. I was not prepared. And I think in a way that stunted me mentally, because I'm still very childlike, but it's a lot to do with just pleasing that inner child. Because there are some days where I will wake up at 2:30 in the morning with munchies, and I'll go into the kitchen, put on the big comfy couch on my phone, because it's free on Paramount, not Paramount, on Prime. It's free on Prime. If you have Prime, the big comfy couch is on there. And I would just kind of chill with kid shows. And like my family doesn't understand that. And I'm just trying to please my inner child because she's upset that she went through all this. I'm upset that she went through all this. And so working with Pride really made me realize just how much shit I was put through and still feel like it's all my fault. Well, if I hadn't made this decision, well, if I hadn't worn that, well, if I hadn't said that. Just a lot of shame. And when I was working with Sloth last year, it wasn't as intense because I had by then accepted the fact that there are some days that I'm not going to be productive. I had accepted that fact. And it was a lot easier for me to accept Sloth than it has been to accept Pride. trying to find the love in myself, for myself, was really, really hard. Just exceptionally hard. And I guess working with sloth, I was real superfluous working with sloth, because I had accepted my mental health was part of that, and it helped me go through the motions and just accept the fact that sometimes I'm not productive, and that's okay. But when it came to pride, I guess I was proud that I was not proud of myself, in a way, if that makes sense. I'd been brainwashed to think pride was a shameful thing. It's a sin, so to say. So I had the hardest fucking time trying to get through that emotion of shame for feeling pride, for feeling in love with oneself and enjoying that person and being that person. And I cried so fucking much because I didn't realize how much I was just punching myself down. I didn't realize how much I was ashamed of. Like, it was my fault that I went through all these things. I didn't realize how much I had just shoved myself down so low that I couldn't even get up. And God, it was torture. Doing the ritual, I was literally crying so hard I was keening. I was so glad I was in the basement because somebody would have heard me. And I was just wailing like somebody had stabbed me. And it was all because I didn't have pride in myself. And it made me realize how much love I deny myself because I feel like I deserve to be punished. And I don't know why I feel like I deserve to be punished. That's the crazy thing is I've done my best and everything, and yeah, it wasn't great, but it was the best I could do at the time. But yeah, this is going to be a process. Like I know that Witch's Blackland is now over, but I'm going to be working with pride a lot more in these next few months throughout the year, because my word of the year is love, and a lot of that has to do with self-love, and a lot of self-love has to do with pride. And like I always preach about, you are your own God, you are your own creator, and the power is within you. But I didn't realize that as much as I'm saying that to others, I don't feel that in myself. And that's the fucked up part. Anyway, I've been rambling for like 20 minutes folding towels. I'm almost done with the towels. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great day and brightest blessings.